now listening to the War Report Podcast Network.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the College Loop Podcast, episode 229 of the College Loop Podcast. I am Dylan Larck, @boateng on Twitter, here to talk about the latest in Auburn athletics news. I just want to let everybody know, happy NCAA or College Football 2025 release. I was not able to have a show on that day that it was released, but I have probably put about 20 hours into the game already. I have an addiction. Sorry. I have started many dynasties. I have started many Road to Glories already. Have not recorded any of them yet, but you can expect that coming very, very soon. That's going to be on the Warport Gaming, TWR Gaming, and maybe some content here for that as well, because I, again, very, very addicted to that game. But if you've been playing it's College Football 2025, let me know in the comments, or what team are you rocking all the time. But as we move on, SEC Media Days was this past week, and Auburn was, of course, in attendance for it with Hugh Freeze, Keldrick Falk, Eugene Asante, and, of course, Peyton Thorne. I won't speak too much of what was said, but there was some high points that I really liked hearing from the players about. Eugene Asante loved the story that he brought up, talking about the 2022 season, his first time at Auburn, Brian Harsin recruiting him, very rarely seeing the field, and then just seeing what this current staff and under Hugh Freeze was able to do and talk to him and keep him around, and officially emerging as probably arguably the best player going into this season, and definitely someone that a lot of NFL teams will be looking at throughout this year. But just love Eugene Asante, love the story. I mean, I don't think there's a single player that is beloved this much by any team, I must say, because he's just so fun and funny, smart, well-educated man, and he's just the best linebacker you could have on a team. And I just kind of go any further than that. The theme of this week on SEC Media Days, I don't know if everybody watched it, but everybody was so pro Jordan-Hare Stadium, which I'm not against. But I thought it was really funny that when you're talking about different environments to play in, Alabama, Georgia, Tech, and Oklahoma, we're all asked these questions. And, Kirby Smart famously talked about how Jordan-Hare Stadium is the most difficult place to play in the world. And then you get to hear Oklahoma talk about it. And I think Jackson Arnold said that Carson Beck told him that place was cursed, which is hilarious. And you got to hear a lot of the players' thoughts on that. And just they're really enjoying playing in front of, the greatest fan base in college football. Very, very few teams can claim to sell out stadiums with only 3 wins on their schedule. But overall, it was a very solid week of SEC Media Days. Got a lot of good answers from all the players, and got to hear a lot from Peyton Thorne, where he was talking about the different weapons that he has gotten over the course of this offseason, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Talk about when we get to the big conversation of this episode. And you're going into a year where a lot of the fans aren't on your side. You're going into a year where the media is ranking you bottom of the SEC because you finished, I think, 14th or 11th or somewhere in between that in QBR last year, and trying to change the narrative of how the fans see you. And he had a bunch of good answers, and talking about how Hugh Freeze has a lot of confidence in him, and just not going out and getting a transfer portal quarterback will do that for you. But again, I cannot emphasize going to listen to what they said enough. I don't want to go too far in depth because I just don't want to this episode to be mostly just quotes. But I'll talk about some of this in a little bit whenever I get to the question of the day of is Auburn football on the right track under Coach Hugh Freeze. We'll get to that in just a second. Just want to get through some quick little news tidbits real quick. Brian Battie update. This is some great news, and you love to hear it. I'm going to read it straight from the GoFundMe. Updates on Brian. Quote, updates on Brian. We are celebrating his courage and determination. Brian is showing daily progress in all areas, physical, occupational, and speech therapy. I'm overjoyed to share an inspiring moment in Brian's journey. After facing the immense challenge of rehabbing after this type of brain injury, without knowing if Brian would walk again, he has achieved something incredible. Brian took his first steps with a cane. Brian told us weeks ago that he would be on his feet by my birthday, and he was taking steps with a cane by Tuesday. He believed he could, and he did. And there's some more to go in depth about that, but cannot emphasize how awesome it is to hear all this great news coming from the Battie family, and glad to see that Brian is coming back and way ahead of schedule. So thoughts and prayers still going out with the Battie family as Brian continues to get better. And then just going through the last little bit before we get into some recruiting news, SEC Media Days, going back to it for a second, media polls they've released, and Auburn is not well received by the media. Starting off with SEC champion votes, as many people know, Georgia and Texas and Alabama are going to be your 1, 2, and 3. The fourth most with 4 votes is Ole Miss. 2 votes going to LSU. Also 2 votes going to Vanderbilt to win the SEC championship, and 1 vote go to South Carolina. Of course, the Vanderbilt jokes are a joke. As many people are already aware, SEC preseason media poll, Auburn currently projected to finish 10th in the SEC, right behind Texas A&M, but right above Kentucky, which, spoiler alert for the next episode of the College Loop, we'll be previewing Auburn versus Kentucky, Peyton Thorne versus Brock Vandegrift, which will be a fun one to talk about on Tuesday. And then preseason media, all SEC first team. Auburn was only represented by Jarquez Hunter on the first team, but you did get some guys across the board thrown around the place. But I like that they do have Jarquez Hunter in the first team. I think that a lot of people are undervaluing what he brings to Auburn going into this year. So I'm really, really glad to see them doing that. But I was a little shocked that I don't think that Alex McPherson was on. I don't think he was named, but I think he was placed on a kicking specialist, which is a weird thing to put for somebody. But it did suck that they didn't do Reed Hughes for long snapper, because I didn't know they did long snappers for SEC media polls for that. But second team, no Tigers were named, which again was a load of crap because Eugene Asante. But third team, you got, I think Auburn got someone. Yeah, there's Eugene Asante on the third team. And, of course, Keontae Scott going on return specialist for that. And Alex McPherson, again, making another claim to fame on the third team as well. So getting into today's discussion today, Auburn is getting ready for Big Cat Weekend, which, again, is next week. We are so close from over 30 blue chip recruits making their way to Auburn, Alabama to talk to Coach Freeze, the staff, players on the team, other Auburn commits. It's going to be huge. I mean, there's, from what I've seen, there are going to be 3 5-stars from this upcoming class, as well as a couple of 5-stars for next year's class, 3 for those as well. So just, it's going to be a huge, huge weekend. Already got some crystal balls coming through. We talked about it last episode. Jared Smith and Anquan Fegans both getting crystal balls to Auburn. Today, Hezekiah Harris, I hope I'm saying that right, got a on-3 prediction from Steve Wiltfong, 4-star edge from the class 2026. So you're getting more and more guys predicted to come to Auburn after what's going to be a huge, huge weekend. And leaving that, going to the question of today, is Auburn on the right track under Coach Hugh Freeze? And you're looking at going into from his second year, you can't grade so much off the first season. Auburn finished, 5-8. 6-7. Sorry, correction on that. 6-7, lost embarrassingly to Maryland. Competed in the big games against Alabama, Ole Miss, and Georgia, but never really didn't get that through. Of course, the loss of Mexico State is always going to suck to think about ever, and I be remiss if I wish I could never talk about that game ever again. But going into this season, Auburn does have not a lot of hype, but there are some whispers amongst the fan base of what if Auburn does do better than what the media thinks. What if Auburn, wins 9 games? What if Auburn upsets Alabama in Bryant-Denny Stadium? These are the questions that people are beginning to think about, because there's a lot of hope growing from within the fan base, looking at this team, looking at the upgrades made at wide receiver. Hugh Freeze, Peyton Thorne, both talked about how much better the wide receiver core is this year than it was last year. Talking about the offensive line, you pick up a all SEC caliber left tackle in Percy Lewis, and you kind of fit the offensive line a little bit better than what you had last year, moving Dylan Way to the inside where he's going to feel more comfortable as a guard than he would a tackle. Of course, you have guys like Connor Liu, who, I've said it before. Now you got Hugh Freeze saying NFL caliber center right there. I did not expect him to play all 4 years at Auburn. He's got two more left where he can enter the draft, but they have a guy who's going to be one of the top linemen in his draft class. It's going to be Connor Liu. I think he's arguably one of the best in college football, and I would love to see him finally get some recognition in that. And you move over to like the defense side of the ball. Auburn made some key pickups in the portal, picking up a bunch of depth pieces to kind of fill out holes left over from the portal and just from last year. You got, I think, 3 linebackers just from the portal alone. I remember Dorian Mousey is the first one that came to my mind. You picked up 2 very solid linebackers in the recruiting class, and DeMarcus Riddick and DJ Barber. You filled out the defensive line, the edge rushers. You got Amaris Williams and Jamonta Waller, who are just lights out, and expect those 2 guys to play right away as freshmen. I would love to go through the list of this recruiting class and kind of see where the red shirts fit in, because I think you can expect some, but I don't think you're going to see a lot of red shirts from this 2024 class, because a lot of these guys are going to fit in right away, like Amon Lane, Jalen Crawford, both guys who I'm very high on, man-to-man dudes that I just love watching play, very physical corners, and that kind of just adds to the team. And I mean, Hugh Freeze he said himself that he didn't really think that he's that good of a portal recruiter, but he went into the portal, picked up a bunch of guys who I don't think he missed on any of them. Jaron Thompson is going to be the starting safety for the Auburn Tigers. He won A-Day defensive MVP. You picked up guys, again, like I mentioned before, you picked up guys like Keandre Lambert-Smith in the offensive side of the ball, Robert Lewis, Sam Jackson V, guys like that. And I think he's selling himself short in the fact that he's not saying how good of a recruiter he has been in the transfer portal. I mean, going in from last year to going in from the previous year, recruiting transfer portal, Auburn was as high as at one point they were the number 1 class across the board. Fell off a little bit because Colorado gets like 45 transfers a year, but just kind of watching where the staff is going, and you kind of understand where the hype's coming from a little bit. I mean, I don't think anyone thinks this team is going to win a championship this year, but those games that we're chalking up. I mean, I'm still going to have Auburn going 8-4, but 9-3 doesn't sound out of the realm of possibility. But and going in further than that, the floor for this team is much higher than it was last year, and that kind of goes to where Hugh Freeze has this team recruiting from. You have just a outstanding wide receiver room that I am boogin level of hype over. I have said multiple times I think this wide receiver room could be one of the best in Auburn football history. But and of course you have to sell your team to the fans. There's not a lot of fans that are pro Peyton Thorne, which last year I can't say that I was, but starting off at least. But as the year progressed, I saw promise from Peyton Thorne. I saw what he could be, and of course we've all watched the film. We've all watched his Michigan State film and see what the high level of Peyton Thorne can be, and that's a 10-win team right there that Michigan State got. Of course, it had guys like Kenneth Walker and Keon Coleman. Who's to say that Auburn doesn't have they have Jarquez Hunter and Cam Coleman. You got back-to-back Colemans to get Peyton Thorne back on top. But it's a year where a lot of the times you're not getting recognition for what Auburn has. It's more of, well, they were bad last year, so they're going to be bad this year. That's where I'm seeing a lot from media and just from people who are predicting Auburn's roster, Auburn's schedule. I've seen a lot of 6 and 6s, 5 and 7s, 7 and 5s coming from it. And 7 and 5, I don't think anyone in their right mind should be upset if Auburn goes 7 and 5 this year. That is progress. Sorry, words are hard. That is progress in the right direction. You were adding wins from the previous season to this year. And of course, even Hugh Freeze didn't go 6 and 6 and then get 10 wins. He had that upward trajectory at Ole Miss, and you're seeing a semblance of that, of what it can be going into the 2024 season, going to 2025. Of course, the class 2025 is a class that a lot of people are very hyped about. I mean, Auburn currently stands at what I believed, if I haven't looked at it in a week, if it's been updated, but right now Auburn stands at 12th in the class 2026 and stands at, as 24/7 begins to load, stands at 15th in the 24/7 poll for the class 2025. And I don't think there's a soul that doesn't think Auburn's going to have a big cat weekend. I think that you were bringing in a lot of guys who, already CB'd to Auburn, some guys who are going to be committing the day after Big Cat Weekend, guys who are going to be committing the week after. And a lot of these players are going to commit with Auburn being their last visit. And that's just the best feeling in the world, because all you have to do is just sell your team better than the last team did, and they don't have to worry about anybody coming in. I mean, last year during Big Cat Weekend, it was rumored all throughout the month going into it that Perry Thompson was going to flip, and then Big Cat Weekend came around and he flipped. And you have KJ Bolden, who honestly said that if Auburn had done a little bit more, during Big Cat Weekend last year, Auburn would have gotten another blue chip in that class, and it would have been something even more special to talk about going into this year. But Auburn finished last year with a top 10 class. And before then, it had been a few years before Auburn had done that. Recruiting, and just saying if Auburn is on the right track with Hugh Freeze, yes, would be an understatement. Recruiting has been more prominent than it ever has been. Whether that's just Hugh Freeze and his staff recruiting harder than any other Auburn coach has, or if that's just the growing the incoming changes going to college football. Now, recruits are so important because not only do you have to recruit them in high school, you have to recruit them in college. You can't like going into next year. I mean, I don't think Cam Coleman will ever transfer, but you have to be mindful of potential transfer outs, and you have to be talking to, I don't even want to say names. I didn't even want to say Cam Coleman when I said that, but you were constantly recruiting your players to come back for the next year. That is such a huge thing about Auburn right now, is you have to maintain the guys that you're picking up. And Auburn's seen a couple of decommits from the high school ranks in class 2025. Some of the 4-stars Auburn has dropped a little bit, but as you talk to people who are more mindful of it, no one's panicking. And there are not a lot of teams out there that can lose 4 or 5 commits in a year and not panic. Of course, you don't want to happen. It sucks when it happens, but you're expecting replacements coming soon. And I mean, with Big Cat Weekend, again, just 6 days away, Auburn's going to pick up some ground. And of course, we've heard from several recruiting analysts and several recruits in this class. And Hugh Freeze has said it himself. He thinks that this class could be finished in the top 5. Top 10, I think, is exactly where it's going to be. I don't know if 5 right now, just because I think the top 5 are pretty solidified, and you're always going to be recruiting against Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, LSU, and Oregon going up that. So you really have to work and getting into flipping those guys. But going into the top 5, I mean, there's not a team in the top 5 that doesn't have a 5-star player, even as high as Alabama, who has 5, Ohio State has 4, Georgia has 2, LSU has 3, Oregon has 2, and that's pretty much a lot of your 5-star classes. But we've seen flips happen before. I'm not going to be making any predictions for any flips that might happen this weekend, or if anybody is on Flip Watch or Flip Alert. I don't know. I'm not there in the locker room with the coaches, so I don't officially know all of that. But I can sense, I can predict it to happen. I don't know who it would happen, but this staff is so adamant on getting the players that they want that you can never go into an off season or go into a week without having a little bit of a thought that Auburn might get a commit. Auburn might flip someone. I think there might have been more flips in the past few years, because NIL. I'll put most of them on NIL, but flips happen, I think, more currently than they did in the previous years, because there's always going to be more conversations to be had. I mean, you hear guys commit somewhere and they go on a visit elsewhere. They commit to a team and then go to that rival's visit weekend. And that's a jab. But you can see something in the air happening there. And you're seeing some of the media who are a little bit more pro Auburn are talking about Auburn more. There's like, oh, well, a sleeping giant, really. And Auburn is, I think, like a top 15 program in the history of college football. And all it takes is just a little push. And I think Hugh Freeze is doing that. I think Auburn is moving in the right direction under Hugh Freeze because of what we're seeing happen just right now going into year 2. And I don't think anything could happen unless the season just completely went sideways. Auburn goes like 4-8, 3-9, and then there's some talking going on. And that would ultimately probably hurt the recruiting class more than anything. I think Hugh Freeze is good until 2025. I think the next year, I think year 3 is when, all right, let's start seeing some results. And then that's when the other conversations start happening with the coaching staffs. But this year you have another mulligan year. I think you always should give a coach 3 years before you even consider firing him, unless he does something stupid. But this year has the potential to prove to recruits, to the fans, to other teams, other media personnel, that Auburn is on the verge. Auburn is not at the peak. Don't want to say that. At the cliff. Auburn is finally able to gain some respect based on how this season goes. I mean, we saw Auburn give Alabama and Georgia a run for their money. It came down to the last drives for both teams. And I mean, a defensive play call goes another way. Brock Bowers gets tackled earlier. You call a blitz instead of a zone or a quarterback spy on 4th and 31. Things can change. But of course, going into the season, wins got to start picking up. And to really show that you're going in the right direction, it's as simple as just adding a win. 7 wins is in the right direction. So with that being said, let me know what you think about Hugh Freeze. Is Auburn going in the right direction under Hugh Freeze? I think he is. I don't think there's a lot of people who don't think Auburn's going in the right direction. So maybe this conversation was just not playful, but more bugging talk, just to kind of hype up the year. I mean, we're 41 days away from college football. And if you're listening to it on Monday, we're 40 days away from from Auburn football. And we're 33 days at that point away from just football in general. And I don't think I think that this season has potential to be a really good one. I mean, you have the 12-team playoff. I mean, you win 10 games in the SEC, you're in the playoffs. It's simple. 2 lost teams are going to be getting in. I mean, a G5 team is going to be playing in the playoffs this year. So I'm super stoked for the year. I mean, I've been playing College Football 25 so much that's all I see now. I can hear the drums right now as we're drawing this show to a close. But before we get out of here, I'm going to play a little ad, and then we'll have a little ad read, and I'll let y'all get out. We'll have a little quick show today because, why not? It's been a long week. So after this ad, we'll be right back with an ad read, and then we'll be getting out of here. So stay tuned. Are you tired of having to rummage through just clothes after clothes after clothes looking for something to wear? Are you tired of your friends making fun of you for your terrible fashion sense? Well, do we have the shirt for you? Go to thewarreport.com, get your laptop out and do it right now. Go to the shop and get your very own Feelin' Loopy t-shirt as well as your college loop hat, and you can get both of them for only $25 each. Plus shipping and handling, of course. But with that, now back to your regular scheduled program. As of course, the College Loop merch on thewarreport.com. So go to thewarreport.com, go to the shop. First page, there's the hat. Second page is the shirt. But that's $25 each. So you can get your family some College Loop merch. If family photos, people love family photos and you love to match. So you got 5 colorways for the shirt. You got 4 colorways for the hat. So you can mix and match. You could make the family photo look great. Trick or treating is just a couple months away. October is just 3 months away. Who wants candy on Halloween? Get them a College Loop hat. It'd be cool. It'd be funny. But of course, make sure if you are wearing the merch at any point you want to shout out the merch, post it on Twitter, tag us in it at the College Loop, and also put hashtag Feelin' Loopy, and you'll get a nice little shout out on the show. But with that, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Getting out of here, I think we're around 6:30 on the dot. So let's go for that. I'm Dylan Larck, you boy the tank on Twitter. So catch me on Instagram as well at Dylan Larck, DYLANLERCK. Expect more college football 2025 gameplay, which is going to be coming soon, hopefully on the channel and on TWR Gaming. So make sure to go check that out. There's going to be 2 dynasties going on. I just need to find the time to record it, and then believe me, it'll be up. So if you enjoy college football 2025, expect it on both channels. So, and of course, College Loop on social media is Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, the works. All of the College Loop. And of course, right here on YouTube, we should like, comment, subscribe. Yet again, we're getting so close to 900 subscribers. We're getting closer to 1,000 subscribers. I would love to watch the number go from 999 to 1K. It's something I love watching on social media. So let's get there. But of course, all that being said, thanks for tuning in to some of the College Loop podcast. Again, I'm Dylan Larck, and thanks for watching.